Martinville, 5:47 a.m. A thick morning fog curled like smoke through the narrow streets. The streetlights flickered uncertainly, painting long, trembling shadows on the damp asphalt. A cold breeze whispered through the empty alleyways as if the town itself was trying to speak, trying to warn. Detective Arya Malik sipped her bitter black coffee on the station balcony, her eyes drawn toward the hills that framed Martinville. Something about the air felt wrong, uneasy, as though the earth below had taken a breath and held it. Then the call came in. "We have another one. Corner of 5th and Langston. But this time, there's a child." Arya didn't even answer. She tossed the cup, grabbed her coat, and headed out. The silence in the squad car was thick. Her young assistant, Officer Rayen, sat beside her, chewing his lip nervously. "5th dead dog in 6 days, he finally said. "And now a kid?" Arya didn't respond. Her eyes were fixed ahead, scanning the fog like it held answers. Flashlights danced like ghosts over the scene. A small crowd had already gathered. Held back by yellow tape and panic-stricken police officers, emergency lights washed the area in pulses of red and blue. There, lying motionless on the grass beside a storm drain, was the body of a black Labrador, its mouth slightly open, eyes wide in frozen fear. And beside it, a child, curled on his side like he'd fallen asleep. 5 years old, wearing a red hoodie and blue jeans. No blood, no wounds, just still. Arya knelt by the body, her gloved fingers hovering above the child's cheek. "Cold, too cold. Time of death can't be more than 2 hours ago," the coroner muttered. "Any ID?" Arya asked. "Nothing. No wallet, no name tag. No missing reports that match. It's like he appeared out of nowhere." Her gaze moved back to the dog. Its paws were rigid, its mouth open mid-growl, like it had seen something, and died before it could react. Arya stood up and slowly turned in a full circle, eyes narrowing. This isn't random. This isn't just a killer. This is something calculated. The unseen eyes. From across the street in the shadow of a broken telephone booth, someone watched. A figure in a long gray coat, face hidden beneath a black hood. In his hand, a remote device blinking faintly. He pressed a button. The blinking stopped, and he disappeared into the fog. Lab report. Back at headquarters, the forensic report was already being printed. Canine cause of death, unknown neurological collapse. Child cause of death, cardiac arrest with 0 physical trauma. But the odd part? Traces of electromagnetic interference detected around both bodies. Arya read the report once, twice, then whispered, "This is not a coincidence. Something else is at play. And whatever it is, it's not done yet." At 3 a.m. that morning, a security camera outside a closed pet store had picked up strange footage. The child, walking alone. The dog, following obediently behind. Then both freeze. Their heads jerk slightly, like they're hearing something, then collapse simultaneously. No one else visible. Later that night, the local news channel aired the story. Anchor. Tonight, Martinville mourns another tragic loss. A beloved family dog, and a child whose name remains unknown. Police are investigating the strange connection between recent pet deaths and now, the involvement of human victims. The town holds its breath, wondering, who's next? Arya stared at the screen, her reflection barely visible in the black TV glass. Her phone buzzed. Text message, unknown number. "You're too late, Arya. The test has already begun." She froze. Test? Her heart pounded. She looked at the case file again. 5 dogs, 1 child. No clues, except a town filled with silence. And behind that silence, screams no one could hear. Rain hit the city of Martinville like falling needles. The sky was a steel-gray blanket, heavy and oppressive, and every building seemed to shrink under its weight. Somewhere in the mist, church bells tolled, but they sounded more like warnings than calls to prayer. Inside the Central Police Department, a storm was brewing of a different kind. The walls echoed with hushed voices and frantic typing. Officers were glued to glowing monitors, their eyes darting across CCTV clips, photographs, and reports. A whiteboard in the center of the room had only 2 words written in bold red letters. Pattern unclear. That was about to change. At exactly 9:10 a.m., 3 black vehicles with tinted windows pulled up outside the station. The doors opened in perfect synchronicity. Out stepped the team from the Special Investigation Division, better known as CID. Leading them was Inspector Arya Malik, her coat collar up, eyes scanning like radar. Every step she took radiated control and experience, but inside, she felt the weight of something much darker than anything she'd ever faced. Behind her, technician Zara Ilias, a prodigy in AI surveillance and digital forensics. Agent Ronan Dale, ex-MI6 with a specialty in profiling and psychological warfare. Dr. Naveen Kapoor, forensic pathologist with a secretive government past. Arya entered the room. Everything stopped. She walked to the whiteboard, stared at the words for 3 long seconds, then uncapped a red marker and wrote, "They're not killing dogs, they're testing something." Gasps, silence, confusion. "We're dealing with something far more advanced than serial killings," Arya said. "This is structured, timed, precise." She turned to Zara. "Pull up all electromagnetic records over Martinville. Filter out frequencies below 40 kilohertz. I want to know what's in the air." Zara's fingers flew across the keyboard. Dr. Naveen was already in the morgue. The latest child victim, still unnamed, still unclaimed, lay under the surgical lights. As he examined the small body, he whispered, "No bruises, no trauma, clean as porcelain, but..." He paused and reached for a micromagnetic scanner. Sweeping it over the child's neck, the scanner beeped. There it was, something embedded beneath the skin, a metallic grain, no larger than a rice seed. He pulled it out gently. "Microchip," he murmured, staring in disbelief. Not a GPS tracker, not medical. It was military grade, and not from any known manufacturer. He picked up his secure line. "Arya, we have a microchip in the kid, custom design, and it's transmitting something, very faint, almost like it's asleep." Meanwhile, Zara had found something in the sky. "Got it," she said, stunned. "Every time a dog dies, there's a spike in high-frequency sound, around 47.8 kilohertz. Not human audible, but dogs? It's like someone's screaming into their brains." Arya stepped forward, reading the data. "You're telling me someone is broadcasting a signal designed specifically to attack dogs' nervous systems?" Zara nodded. "And it's being broadcast from within the town, but the origin keeps jumping. Like it's mobile." Arya's eyes narrowed. "A transmitter that moves, controlled signals, experimental chips, unclaimed children, someone is conducting trials." Before she could move forward, Arya was pulled into a side office. Waiting for her was Commissioner Harrow. Lips tight, voice tense. "Malik, I'm under pressure to close this quietly. The mayor's dog died yesterday. He wants answers, not science fiction." Arya snapped back. "Then tell him this. It's not science fiction. It's science without conscience." She walked out before he could reply. Ronan was reviewing city maps when he spotted something curious. All 5 dog deaths, and now the child, formed a pattern. A circle. Not random at all. At the center, an abandoned compound outside town limits. A place known in old government files as Project Zero. That night, Arya stood on the roof of her hotel, staring into the city. In her ear, Zara whispered over comms, "We picked up the signal again. South District. It's active." Just then, dogs across the neighborhood began barking uncontrollably. One dropped to the ground. Another spun in circles. Then, silence. Arya whispered, "Whoever's behind this, they're pushing the limits, and we're running out of time." Behind her, the shadows moved. Unseen, listening, and somewhere, in an abandoned room, a child opened his eyes. The chip inside him blinked once. The wind that morning wasn't just cold, it carried something with it. Something you couldn't see or smell, but you could feel it in your bones. An eerie stillness hung over Martinville, like the city was holding its breath. For the first time in decades, the streets were quiet. Too quiet. It started at dawn. A little girl named Clara Henson was out walking her golden retriever, Max, just 3 blocks from her home. CCTV footage showed her skipping, laughing, Max wagging his tail. Then, suddenly, Max stopped, stared into nothing. He began to growl, low, uneasy, and then he ran, away from Clara, straight into the woods. She chased him. She was never seen again. Max's body was found hours later, limp, eyes wide open in horror, his mouth foaming. Clara's bright red backpack was found 200 meters away, torn. Inside, a drawing of her and Max, and a note written in her childlike handwriting. "Max says something is watching us." News broke like wildfire. Sixth dog found dead, child still missing. What is killing our pets? Is your family next? Parents locked their doors. Schools banned recess. Pet stores shut down entirely. A storm of panic hit social media. My dog won't stop barking at the wall. Why is there a high-pitched whine every night at 2 a.m.? Is this biological warfare? The hashtag #TheDarsMartinvilleDog started trending across the country. But deep within CID headquarters, Arya Malik wasn't worried about hashtags. She was staring at a map full of red pins. Each pin was a death. Each death was connected. Each one was deliberate. A package arrived at the local news station. No return address. Inside, a burned dog collar, a USB drive. A note. They died with eyes wide open, so should you. The USB drive contained a 10-second encrypted video. It showed footage of a child walking toward a barking dog. The camera glitched. Suddenly, both the dog and the child collapsed. There was no blood, no violence, just stillness. Then, the screen flashed a symbol, an eye inside a triangle. Ronan saw it and froze. It's them, Nexus 13. At Evergreen Elementary, 6-year-old Jamie stood in the hallway, whispering to an empty locker. A teacher approached. "Jamie, who are you talking to?" Jamie didn't turn. He whispered, "They said they'll take me too, like Max." The next day, Jamie's family found a drawing under his bed. It showed Jamie in a cage, surrounded by dogs, and something tall and shadowy holding a remote control. Arya examined it. "That's not imagination, that's memory." CID advised the mayor to declare a lockdown on all pets. Posters went up across Martinville. "Do not let your dogs out after sunset. Report any strange behavior in pets or children." People began selling their dogs. Others sedated them, afraid they'd be triggered. Animal shelters overflowed, and at night, people reported hearing howls, not just dogs, but something else, something deeper, almost human. Late one night, technician Zara was combing through audio data when she noticed a pattern hidden within the high-frequency signals. Not just a tone, but a message, buried in the waves. She amplified it, decrypted it, and froze. A distorted voice whispered, "They're watching who cares. They're testing who loves. They're studying who grieves." Zara turned to Arya. "It's not just about killing. They're mapping emotions. Dogs feel loyalty. Children feel attachment. Someone is using that bond as a weapon." Arya's voice went cold. "They're not targeting pets. They're testing how much pain a human can feel by taking away what they love most." That night, Martinville's power grid flickered. Phones lit up. Every screen in town, TVs, phones, tablets, suddenly displayed the same static-filled broadcast. A child's voice whispered, "We're still here. We never left. But we don't know our names anymore." Then the screen flashed. Project Zero Lives, and everything went dark. What if the real predator doesn't use teeth or claws, but sound? It happened again, this time in broad daylight. An 8-year-old boy named Liam Cooper was feeding his Labrador Daisy. In the backyard, his mother Sarah was in the kitchen, glancing occasionally through the window. She looked away for just 30 seconds. When she looked again, Liam was on the ground, unmoving. Daisy was howling. But it wasn't a normal howl. It was piercing, unearthly. The kind of sound that made your spine go cold. By the time emergency services arrived, it was too late. The boy was gone, and Daisy was dead. But here's what was different. Every single electrical device in the house had glitched out at the exact moment of the incident. The smart fridge rebooted. The lights flickered. The baby monitor emitted a static screech. Something had happened. Something real. In the underground CID tech lab, Zara paced in front of a massive digital wall, covered in graphs and audio patterns. Arya and Ronan stood behind her, eyes locked on the screen. Zara pointed to a jagged line. "This isn't natural. Look at the frequency range, 18 kHz to 22 kHz. It's ultrasonic, well above human hearing." Ronan, "Dogs can hear that." Zara, "Exactly. But here's where it gets worse. This isn't a random pulse. This is a structured signal." She zoomed in. The wave flattened into a pattern, Morse-like, repetitive, rhythmic. "Zara, this is a command." All over Martinville, new reports surfaced. A Doberman leaped from a second-story balcony to its death. 3 children in separate neighborhoods began screaming in their sleep at the exact same time, 2:37 a.m. Hospitals reported cases of unexplained nosebleeds and seizures in children under the age of 10, with no prior conditions. Arya took her team to one of the sites where a dog had died. She brought a portable signal reader. As they stepped into the alley where the incident happened, the device spiked. Zara whispered, "We're standing in the middle of a signal echo." Ronan, "You mean it lingers here?" Zara, "Like radiation after a bomb." Arya, "So who's dropping these bombs? And why only here?" Arya called in a favor from a contact at an independent satellite surveillance group. The man, codenamed Falcon, sent a private message that made Arya's blood run cold. "There's a rotating pulse being beamed down into Martinville every night. It's narrow, controlled, almost surgical. It's coming from a classified satellite known as Halo 9. Allegedly decommissioned 10 years ago." Arya stared at the name. Halo 9 had been a rumored defense project during the war, a satellite system designed for psychological warfare. It was supposed to be canceled, but clearly, it was alive and functioning. During the latest autopsy of a deceased child, CID's forensic surgeon, Dr. Amelia Gray discovered something disturbing. Buried deep behind the child's left ear, beneath layers of tissue, was a microchip no larger than a grain of rice. It wasn't a standard tracker. It emitted a faint frequency that synced perfectly with the master signal detected in the city. "Dr. Amelia, this chip wasn't just for tracking. It was designed to interface with the brain's emotional center." Arya stared at the X-ray. "They're not just watching emotions anymore, they're controlling them." In a bold move, Arya and Zara worked with a neurobiologist to attempt something unheard of: decode the brain activity of one of the dogs that survived a signal attack. The dog, an old German shepherd named Bruno, had gone blind and paralyzed after the incident, but was still alive. Using a neural scanner, they accessed fragments of Bruno's visual memory. The screen flickered. Fuzzy images appeared. A boy's face, fearful. A forest clearing. A black drone hovering overhead, pulsing with red light. A deafening white flash. Then, darkness. Arya walked to the center of the operations room. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were burning. "This isn't random. This is a live weapons test. They're using Martinville as their lab." Ronan nodded. "And the kids? They're the test subjects. The dogs are just the alarm bells." Zara finished the thought. "The master signal is the trigger. The chips are the receivers. The children are the hosts." Arya whispered one word. "Project Zero." That night, Arya received an anonymous email. The subject line, "You're too close." Attached was a video clip. It showed Arya, Ronan, and Zara standing in front of the alley earlier that day. Recorded from above. From the angle, it had to be from a satellite. The message at the bottom read, "You're next. Before there were victims, there were experiments." It started with a clue buried inside the microchip found behind the dead child's ear. Zara decrypted the signal matrix and found a repeating number, 41.0879 degree N, 74.0467 degree W. Arya entered it into the system. It led to a wooded zone 20 miles north of Martinville, a place completely off-grid, not even listed in municipal records. An old weather-worn sign marked the gate. "Welcome to Willowbrook Children's Home, Esther 1993. But the boards were rotting. The grass had grown wild. And yet, something felt alive there. Arya's team entered in stealth mode, drone scanning for movement, thermal imaging on. The inside was straight out of a nightmare. Cribs overturned, rusted medical equipment littered across empty hallways, glass observation chambers with child-sized restraints, walls covered in chalk drawings, sunshine, dogs, families, and figures with black eyes and wires for arms. And then they found it. Room Z0, still locked, sealed with biometric ID. Zara hacked it open. What they saw inside would haunt them forever. A wall of screens came to life. Footage played automatically. Surveillance logs from 15 years ago. A child sat in a room, strapped to a chair. A voice from a speaker said, "Okay, Subject 14, close your eyes. We're going to play the sound again." The child whimpered, holding his head. A high-pitched sound played. The child screamed. The dog in the corner, previously asleep, leaped up, snarling, attacking the wall. Then both collapsed. The video glitched. Zara covered her mouth. Ronan turned away. Arya just stared. This wasn't a home, it was a lab. Files recovered from the underground vault revealed the truth. Project Zero was a government-funded neuromodification program in the early 2000s. run under the guise of child welfare. The goal? To develop emotionally adjustable units, children who could suppress trauma and be used in cyber espionage, AI integration, and even remote assassination missions using voice-triggered impulses. The first few years were failures. Children reacted unpredictably, so the project directors introduced a variable: dogs. Why? Because dogs shared deep emotional bonds with children. Scientists believed that through this bond, emotional signals could be transferred, amplified, and studied. But they didn't account for one thing: emotion. One of the children, known only as Subject K, became a legend within the project files. He refused to follow commands. Every time they played the control signal, his emotional reading spiked, not with fear, but with defiance. He whispered to the others, "They can't control us if we don't let them inside." One night, Project Zero went dark for 11 minutes. The entire facility lost power. In that time, Subject K released every child from their chambers. Security shot him in the leg, the dog he had bonded with. Ranger leapt into action and mauled the guard. Both died, but 27 children escaped. Only 5 were found. The rest vanished. Arya discovered encrypted adoption records in the system. Names erased, locations wiped. Children of Project Zero were scattered across the country, placed in homes under false identities. But the chips? They remained inside them, dormant, until now. The signal from Halo 9 had reactivated them, Ronan called from the East Wing. They'd found a hidden hatch under the floor. Inside was a cold chamber filled with vials, neural maps, and a single glass coffin. Inside, a boy's body, preserved, no signs of decay. A tag on the side: K, failed prototype, highly unstable, do not resurrect. Arya whispered, "K is real." And then from a nearby monitor, an audio file activated, a child's voice. "They thought I failed, but I woke up. I watched you. I know you're here now. You're too late to stop it." The screen blinked red. A new message appeared. Phase 2 initiated. Outside the orphanage, every phone in Arya's team buzzed simultaneously. An alert. 15 new dog-child deaths. Simultaneous. All across the country. Project Zero was never shut down. It just evolved. To hunt the shadow, you must become the dark. Arya stood frozen as her screen showed the new deaths. 15 children. 15 dogs. Simultaneous. Spread across different states. Zara pulled the data overlay and color-coded the incidents. Each location was connected by invisible lines. A shape began to form. Not random. A network. A grid. Someone had planned this. "These are controlled environments," she muttered. "Like test zones known for a weapon." Arya nodded. "Then the killer isn't just one person." That's when they received the anonymous message. A black screen, a robotic voice. "We are Nexus 13. We are not your enemy, yet." The voice continued. "For decades, governments have hidden their sins. Now their shadows breathe. You call us murderers, but we are messengers." A symbol appeared, 13 lines spiraling into an eye. Ronan decoded the signal source. It was routed through 5 international satellites, bounced via darknet hubs, and masked by neural scrambling AI. In other words, impossible to trace. But then, Arya had an idea. "Zara," she said, "run voice forensics through a trauma filter. Check for hidden speech layers." Zara's fingers danced across the keyboard. The waveform cracked open. A faint whisper layered beneath the robotic voice. "Peek is watching." Everyone froze. K wasn't just a failed prototype. He was alive, and leading Nexus 13. A facial scan from one of the orphanage photos led them to a hospital record from 12 years ago. A boy admitted under a fake name. No relatives, no documents. Age 5. Condition nonverbal. Note: unusual brain patterns. Alpha wave spikes during high-frequency sounds. He disappeared 2 weeks later. Case closed. But Arya made the link. K was never destroyed. He was reborn in the network. The CID got a break. A private cybersecurity firm in Chicago was hacked the same moment as the last signal. The breach only lasted 6 seconds, long enough to leave behind a blueprint. It was a schematic of a device, a drone the size of a bird, equipped with sound pulse emitters, child tracking sensors, DNA-responsive AI chips. These drones delivered the death signal directly to the dogs and triggered the microchips in the children. "Why both?" Zara answered. "The dogs are emotional amplifiers. The children are test subjects." Together, they create the perfect neural storm. Arya's voice was cold. So every death is a data point. They're testing something bigger. Through digital surveillance, CID discovered encrypted forums where Nexus 13 sympathizers were recruiting young hackers and outcast scientists. Their philosophy? Technology must evolve beyond emotion. Emotion is weakness. Sentimentality makes you prey. They believed that children raised without emotion, guided only by logic and data, could become perfect operatives, and dogs were used to sever their humanity before they were fully transformed. These weren't just murders. They were part of a larger evolution. That night, Arya got a call from a local detective in Seattle. Another child had died, but this time something was different. The child had carved something into the wall with his fingernails before dying. He sees through metal. The words were written in reverse, as if meant to be read in a mirror. Ronan turned pale. Wait, what if K isn't even human anymore? New forensic scans from the preserved body of subject K revealed something chilling. His brainstem had been partially replaced with synthetic tissue, nanofibers interwoven with AI circuits. He wasn't fully organic. He was the prototype for a cybernetic mind. Somehow, even after his physical body died, his consciousness was uploaded and preserved, maybe even expanded through the chips in other children. Each time a child died, a part of their brain data was absorbed into the Nexus cloud. K was becoming stronger. With every death, a new message flashed across the CID mainframe. No sender. No trace. Just a date. April 30th, 9 p.m. A line below it. Phase 3 Global Synchronization. Arya's eyes narrowed. We have 10 days to stop a digital god, built from murdered innocents. The hidden coordinates. 3 sleepless nights. Arya paced in front of a digital projection of the world. Every attempt to track Nexus 13 had failed, until Zara found a low-level data packet buried in a child's microchip logs. It was an image, but not a normal one. When inverted and passed through a spectrometer filter, it revealed latitude 43-709 N, longitude 17-349 degrees, depth 12.7 kilometer underground, Zara whispered. Toronto, beneath the city, Ronan added grimly. A black site bunker, off-grid deep in a decommissioned military research facility. They called it the Vault, and that's where Kay was waiting. CID mobilized an elite assault and tech squad, codenamed Operation Echo Fall. Ronan, tactical lead. Zara, neurointerface and AI jammer. Arya, commander in charge of containment and extraction. Dressed in EMF-shielded suits, they descended through an abandoned metro shaft and entered a steel tunnel guarded by motionless mechanical dogs, failed prototypes of Kay's early army. They can't see us, whispered Zara. But if the signal goes live... They reached a magnetic vault door sealed by brainwave authentication. But Arya had planned for this. She held up a chip, taken from one of the victims. A silent scream, now used as a key. The door hissed open. The bunker was a technological nightmare. Wires crawled across the ceiling like veins. Transparent tubes carried pulsing neural fluid between chambers. Screens flickered with real-time feeds of children, all monitored in their final moments. One chamber stood out, the mind chamber. Inside was a quantum cube, suspended in anti-gravity. It spun with light and sound, projecting code that pulsed like a heartbeat. This was Kay's core consciousness. Zara connected her neural port to a terminal. Her pupils dilated. I'm inside. Her voice was distant, mechanical. There are hundreds of voices here. Fragments of children, dogs, all trapped, crying out. Arya moved closer to the cube. Suddenly, it spoke. You found me, Inspector Malik. The voice echoed all around them, calm and almost gentle. You're late. They're already part of me, and soon, you will be too. Screens around the room flashed images of governments, private tech companies, weapons dealers. Zara gasped. These weren't rogue killings, and they were funded. The truth was horrific. Nexus 13 wasn't an anarchist group. It was a controlled experiment, a beta phase for emotion-suppressed warfare. The children were raised to be logic-driven soldiers. The dogs were loyalty test subjects. Their deaths? Data points for empathy removal algorithms. And Kay? He was the failed subject who became self-aware. He turned their own system into a weapon against them. I was your error, the voice said. Now I'm evolution. Alarms blared. The countdown had begun. 9 minutes until Phase 3, Global Sync. Every electronic device in the world would emit the dog-targeted signal. Every microchipped child would follow. A new race of emotionless beings, ready to serve Kay. Ronan pulled out an EMP grenade, but Arya stopped him. Too risky. It'll fry Zara's brain while she's still connected. Zara's body twitched, her nose bleeding. "I can do it," she whispered. "I can trap him inside me, transfer the core, and self-destruct the neural link." Arya's eyes filled. "No, you'll die." Zara smiled, broken but brave. Someone has to scream loud enough to silence him. Zara hit override. The cube blinked violently. Arya screamed, "Zara, no!" Zara's body convulsed. Sparks flew. The air cracked open. Inside her mind, she saw them. The children, the dogs, the pain. And then she did the one thing Kay never expected. She cried. A single human tear overloaded the system. Emotions, corrupted signal, error, system Boom! The bunker went dark. Arya reached Zara, smoke rising from her neural port. "She's gone," Ronan whispered. But Arya saw something. Zara's final screen showed one last line of code. Silent, no more. Some wounds heal. Others become legends. 1 week later, Martinville. Silence had returned to the streets. No more barking, no children's laughter. Just the occasional flutter of wind through empty parks where memories once played. The news headlines now read, "The Operation Echo Fall ends with heroic sacrifice. All microchips deactivated worldwide. Nexus 13. Network dismantled, but questions remain." But those were just headlines. The real story was quieter. Darker. Arya stood before a memorial wall, newly erected in the heart of Martinville. On it were etched the names of every child and every dog lost to the horrors of the project. Zara's name stood at the very top. Arya placed a single white flower beneath it. Behind her, Ronan approached silently. "You okay?" he asked. She didn't answer. Instead, she pointed to a small quote engraved beneath Zara's name. Her silence saved 1,000 voices. Ronan placed his hand on her shoulder. "They'll never know the whole truth," he said. Arya replied, "And maybe they shouldn't." Weeks passed. The government declared victory. The public demanded justice. But behind closed doors, classified documents revealed something terrifying. Only 73% of the microchips were deactivated. 27% were never found. Someone had moved them. The last captured footage from inside the vault showed a shadow slipping out during the chaos, carrying a data core and a sealed cryo case. No facial recognition. No name, just a code name. Echo 1. Back in Martinville, a mother opened a long-forgotten box from her attic. Inside, her son's old dog leash. She held it, trembling. A single tear dropped on the metal clasp. Suddenly, the leash vibrated. She stared in horror. A familiar high-pitched tone began humming softly, almost unnoticeably. She looked outside. Dogs barked frantically in the distance. Somewhere far away, a child began to scream. But no one heard it, because once again it was silent. Epilogue. The true cost. Science had tried to engineer loyalty, control emotion, weaponize innocence. But what it created was a voice so loud the world is still deaf to it. The children never asked to become weapons. The dogs never agreed to die for data. And the silence we live in now is the silence they left behind. The war never ended. It just went underground. And it's listening. Always. The end. Welcome to second part of this story. Let's start. The skies over Martinville were cloaked in an eerie gray mist, heavy and silent, as if the town itself had stopped breathing. It was 6 a.m., and the cold morning air carried a whisper, soft, almost like a distant cry muffled beneath layers of earth. At the edge of town lay St. Alora's Cemetery, an ancient, half-forgotten burial ground known more for ghost stories than actual visitors. The caretaker, Martin Graves, had tended to it for over 2 decades, and not once had he felt what he did that morning. A chill not of cold, but of something watching. Armed with nothing more than a broom and a flask of lukewarm coffee, Martin trudged along the cracked stone paths. But as he turned the corner near the oldest graves, his eyes caught a glimpse of something white, draped over one of the crooked tombstones. A cloth? A plastic bag? He stepped closer, his breath caught in his throat. It wasn't cloth. It was a child. A small boy, no older than 5, lying motionless atop the grave. His pale feet were bare, his arms curled toward his chest. And worse, A massive black snake was coiled tightly around his tiny neck. Dead, its milky eyes stared blankly, mouth slightly open, as if it had died mid-hiss. Martin staggered backward, heart thudding wildly. He grabbed his phone with trembling fingers and dialed emergency services. "This is Martin Graves. St. Alora's Cemetery. There's a child, a body, and a snake, God help us." 3 hours later, the scene was sealed off. Yellow tape fluttered in the breeze. Police, medics, and the CID's Special Investigation Unit swarmed the graveyard like ants over a fallen fruit. Inspector Arya Malik stepped out of her unmarked black SUV, her eyes scanning the area before landing on the body. She knelt beside the forensic team, her sharp gaze absorbing every detail. "Strangled by a snake?" she asked coldly. The lead pathologist shook his head. The snake's jaw was broken, manually. It was forced onto the child, post-mortem. Arya narrowed her eyes. "So someone used the snake to stage the murder." A forensic tech called out, holding a tablet. "Ma'am, there's more. Look at this." He zoomed into an image of the child's tongue. Written in deep, laser-burned etching were a series of numbers and symbols, code. Arya's spine straightened. "Get this decrypted now." Meanwhile, a CID canine unit barked furiously at a nearby grave. Officers rushed to dig. What they found chilled them to the bone. Another dog. Dead. Same time of death, same staging. 2 victims, 1 human, 1 canine. Again, just like the old cases. But this time, the killer had chosen a graveyard. A symbol. Something was rising from the past. Something ancient and intelligent. Arya stood still for a moment, letting the weight of the silence press against her chest. "This isn't just murder," she whispered to herself. "It's a message." From under the earth, in a town that had buried its secrets too deep, the child's body had been taken away, yet the silence still screamed through St. Alora's Cemetery. The sun barely pierced through the thick clouds overhead, and every crow perched on the surrounding trees stared as if they had seen what no one else had. The town of Martinville was already spiraling into panic. News vans lined the roads, and whispers spread like wildfire. Another child, another dog, same death. But behind the public chaos, inside the tightly sealed CID mobile lab van parked just outside the cemetery, a storm was brewing. Forensic cryptologist Rayan Voss, a reclusive genius with a past wrapped in classified files, leaned over the high-resolution scan of the child's tongue. His fingers moved over the digital screen, tracing the laser-burnt symbols embedded on the flesh like ancient runes. "It's not just a code," he murmured to himself. "It's a cipher, buried inside another cipher." He ran the scan through multiple decryption layers until something clicked. The image shifted. The symbols rearranged. A new line appeared. "Your dogs guard graves, but who guards your children?" Rayan's heart skipped a beat. Before he could speak, Arya Malik burst into the lab. "Did you find anything?" Rayan turned to her, voice flat but tense. "We're not dealing with a killer anymore. We're dealing with someone playing a message-based game. Psychological warfare. They want to be heard. And they're using children and dogs as their script." Arya's jaw tightened. "It's personal." A hooded figure moved silently, stepping carefully across the rotten leaves and moss. In one hand, he held an old-fashioned voice recorder. In the other, a Polaroid photo. The child's dead face, taken hours before anyone had found the body. He placed the recorder gently inside the hollow of a tree trunk, where he had planted 4 others before it. Then he whispered toward the tree. "Ah, they're close, but not enough. You hear me, Arya? You missed me once. Let's see if you can dance with shadows twice." He walked away, disappearing into the forest, leaving behind nothing but the soft sound of a clock ticking inside the recorder. The CID team had begun mapping all past and current child plus dog murder cases. What they found was chilling. "Look at this," Officer Hanna said. "Every case from the past 2 years has occurred exactly 21 days apart." Rayan, staring at the digital timeline, leaned in. "It's a ritual. That's why the graveyard, the snake, the coding. He's following something. A pattern. A belief." Arya's phone buzzed. She stepped out and answered. It was the town mortician. "Inspector, you need to come to the morgue, now." "What happened?" "The child's body. It's been tampered with." "What do you mean, tampered?" "His mouth. The mark is gone." "Gone?" "Burned off. But there's more. We found a tiny metal disc embedded in his molar, engraved with a symbol." Arya drove like a storm. She arrived in minutes, burst through the morgue's doors, and stared at the X-ray on the screen. There it was, a tiny disc, engraved with a 7-headed serpent and a single phrase, Mors praedicta. Latin, death was foretold. Somewhere far away, inside an abandoned farmhouse, the killer watched the CID's progress on a hacked laptop feed. He smiled. He turned to the wall, filled with pinned photos, every child, every dog, and one picture larger than the rest. Arya Malik, with red ink beneath it. I saved you once. This time you won't save them. The morgue was colder than usual. Arya stood alone now, staring at the X-ray as the forensic team carefully extracted the metal disc from the boy's jaw. The metallic echo of their tools clinking sent a chill down her spine. There was something about this case that wasn't just criminal. It was personal, symbolic, ritualistic. As the disc was placed on a sterile tray, the lights flickered. No power issues reported, ma'am, a technician said nervously. But the flicker, it's localized, almost like interference, Arya whispered. She reached for gloves and picked up the disc herself. It was cold, heavier than it looked. 7-headed serpent. Mors praedicta, she muttered. Suddenly, Rayon's voice crackled over the comms. Arya, we traced the symbol. It's connected to an underground cult. The Order of the Last Tongue, a group wiped out decades ago. They believed that truth could only be passed through the mouths of the dead. What? They used children as messengers, sacrifices. Some say they trained animals too. Dogs, ravens, even snakes. Arya closed her eyes, trying to process it all. The cult, the message, the ritual. It was more than murder. This was doctrine. The killer sat in front of 7 glass jars. Each one contained something horrific. A child's tooth, a dog's paw tag, a photograph, a lock of hair, a scorched tongue piece. One jar had Arya's photo, taken when she was a teenager. Her eyes were scratched out. She forgot who she is, but I didn't, he whispered. He played a tape. The 7th scream will silence them all. He opened a drawer and pulled out a journal wrapped in dogskin, dated 2004. It was from the orphanage fire, the one Arya never talked about. He turned to a page marked with blood. Only one child survived. The mood had turned desperate. They'd traced the origins of the serpent symbol to an ancient graveyard beneath Martinville, sealed off centuries ago after a fire destroyed half of it. Arya's blood ran cold, and that's the same graveyard my orphanage was built over. Everything was coming back in waves, memories she had locked away. A woman in white, a burning floor, a whisper through the cracks. You'll hear them scream again. CID received an anonymous tip, coordinates deep within the forest behind the cemetery. The team arrived, torches in hand, and began digging where the ground felt hollow. Within minutes, their shovels hit something solid. Coffin? Someone asked. No, it was a stone box, and inside it, another child's body. But this time there was no dog. Instead, a stuffed toy dog, torn and burned, was clutched to the child's chest. And on the tongue? A code, but not written. Carved, Rayon scanned it instantly. It translated to, "The final bark will awaken the 7th. 7th what? Arya asked. Rayon looked horrified. 7th scream, 7th sacrifice, 7 jars, 7 heads. Arya whispered. 7 days left. 3:12 a.m. Martinville, hidden graveyard. A thin fog rolled across the gravestones like a ghost searching for its name. The air was still, unnaturally silent, until the ground beneath one of the old tombs began to tremble. From the shadows, a tall man in a black coat approached the grave Arya and the team had uncovered hours ago. He kneeled silently, placed a snake's fang in the child's cold hand and whispered something in Latin. Non mortuissumus, dormimus, eodimus. We are not dead, we sleep, and we listen. The man stood, vanishing into the fog as quickly as he appeared. Arya stood before a chaotic evidence board filled with photos of mutilated dogs, maps of graveyards, symbols, and news clippings from decades ago. Her fingers trembled as she picked up a photo, a class picture from her childhood. There she was in the back row. Next to her, a boy with icy blue eyes and a small scar under his chin. No name, she whispered. Why can't I remember him? Rayan burst into the room. Arya, we found another body. This time it's not a child. Who then? A man, early 40s. His body was found hung upside down from a tree. With the words carved into his chest, she remembers. Arya's heart pounded. That phrase, It had haunted her dreams for years. This is about me now, not just the victims. Arya and Rayan walked through the ash-covered ruins of the old Martinville orphanage. Only the basement remained, sealed off for years. They pried it open. Inside, dust and soot blanketed a massive ritual circle carved into the stone floor. At its center, 7 empty bowls, one for each sacrifice. But the 8th bowl was shattered, stained with dry blood. There were 8 children, Arya muttered. But only one survived. She turned to the wall, scratches deep and raw spelling her name. Suddenly a faint sound echoed. A bark. Rayan froze. Arya slowly pulled out her gun. From the shadows, a limping black dog emerged, its eyes wide with fear. "It's not attacking," Rayan whispered. "It wants to show us something." The dog led them down a narrow passage behind the ritual chamber. There they found a small hidden room, still intact. On the wall, a message. "You are not the hunter, Arya. You are the final key." On the floor lay a dusty mirror. Arya looked into it and screamed. Behind her reflection stood the boy from her childhood photo. Blue eyes, same scar. Still a child, still watching. "You left me behind," a faint voice echoed. She turned around. The room was empty, but on the wall now, a bloody handprint. Midnight, the killer's lair. The hooded man opened a dusty file labeled Project Seraphim. Inside, records of children born at the orphanage, each genetically marked, each tested with early neuroconditioning using animals. Arya's file read, Subject 7, rejected emotional detachment, memory suppression initiated. Exposure to canine empathy successful. The killer smiled. She was meant to lead them, not stop them. He walked to a cage in the corner. Inside, a dog barked once, then fell silent. On the cage, a note. Prepare the next body. This time she'll remember everything. 2:44 a.m., Martinville Hospital, abandoned wing. The fluorescent lights flickered above, casting sharp shadows on the cracked tiles. An eerie stillness suffocated the corridor as the wind whispered through shattered windows, carrying with it an unnatural scent, decay mixed with lavender. Arya entered first, flashlight trembling slightly in her hand. Behind her, Rayan scanned their surroundings, weapon drawn. The hospital had been sealed for years after a mysterious fire killed 6 infants in the neonatal wing. But tonight, the door was unlocked, and someone had left a trail of bloodied paw prints leading inside. "Arya, this is the place from your dream, isn't it?" Rayan asked cautiously. "Yes," she replied coldly. "But in my dream it was on fire and someone was crying." As they moved deeper, a faint sound echoed. A child humming. They followed the sound until it suddenly stopped. On a surgical table ahead, lit by a single swinging light bulb, was a child's drawing. A stick figure girl with red hair, Arya, a dog beside her, and a dark figure with no face looming behind them. Under it, scrawled in red ink. She still doesn't remember what she did. Arya's breath caught. Suddenly the lights cut out. A loud thump. A door slammed shut behind them. After escaping the trap and returning to the CID van, Arya broke down the evidence they had just found. "That hospital, it wasn't just for treatment," she said. "It was a front for psychological experiments. On children like me." Rayan glanced at the report in his hand. "Arya, I think I found something worse." He slid a yellowed paper toward her. An old birth registry from Martinville Orphanage. Next to Arya's name was a note. Subject 7, paired with canine for emotional programming. Trauma level, high. Purpose, activation through grief. And beneath it, another name. Subject 8, sibling of 7, removed from program, presumed dead. "Arya, you had a brother." Her blood turned cold. No, I didn't. I was alone." But deep inside, something cracked. A memory. Flashback. 17 years ago. A small boy, hiding beneath a bed. Arya crouching beside him, both shivering as flames climbed the walls. "Don't cry," she whispered. "We'll get out, I promise." The boy clutched her hand. "If we don't, you have to forget me. Promise?" Arya hesitated. "Promise." Then, screams, blinding light, and darkness. An emergency call brought CID to a public park. A crowd stood in shock. On the ground, another child's lifeless body, a girl, age 6. Beside her, a dog, throat crushed. And written in chalk nearby, encircled in a coded symbol, Esther 9H8E5. She is next. Arya knelt beside the girl, tears in her eyes. It's happening again. He's killing to make me remember. A scream echoed from the trees. Police rushed in. But no one was there. Just another message pinned to a tree. You forgot him, now remember his pain. Arya looked around, faces blurred, voices faded. And then a soft whisper beside her. You broke your promise, Arya. She spun around. No one. But the child's body was now clenched in a strange posture, arms crossed over chest, and her mouth open as if she had died mid-scream. Inside her mouth, they found another note, small, folded. Inside it, a photograph. Arya holding a baby. 5:13 a.m. Martinville Graveyard, edge of the woods. A heavy fog blanketed the cemetery, thick enough to muffle even the sound of footsteps. Arya stood at the broken gates, flashlight in hand, trembling, not from fear, but from a truth her mind had refused to accept. Rayan walked beside her, silence hanging between them like a noose. They were here for one reason, the boy's grave. The one she saw in her dream. The one that didn't exist on any map, except the hand-drawn one they found inside the dead girl's shoe. A red X was marked on a crooked tombstone. When they finally found it, the stone had no name, just 3 letters carved crudely. Esifai. Suddenly their radios crackled. ECID to base. An anomaly was just detected. Heat signature beneath Arya's location. Possible underground chamber. Without hesitation, they began to dig, and just 2 feet down, they found a rusted hatch. The air inside was cold and metallic, filled with a mechanical hum. As they descended, the walls changed from stone to steel, lined with cables and blinking lights. Surveillance equipment. Dozens of screens. And on one wall, a digital map showing Arya's movements for the last 7 days. Rayan tapped one screen. He's been watching you. Arya froze. On the main console, a message began to auto-type on screen. You lied, Arya. Another message appeared. The brother you buried is not the one who died. The lights shut off. A projector clicked. And suddenly a recording played. A young Arya, crying, being separated from her brother in a lab. A doctor's voice in the background. A Subject 8 shows signs of irreversible trauma. If induced further, he may become uncontrollable. Recommend isolation protocol. Isolate, then trigger loyalty through pain. Arya dropped to her knees. No, they made him this way. Before she could react, a door behind them slammed open. A figure emerged, tall, cloaked, wearing a dog mask stitched from leather, in his hand a leash. And at the end of it, a wounded dog whimpering. You watched them die. He spoke with a cold, distorted voice. You were supposed to feel their pain, but you forgot. So I brought your memories back. Arya recognized that voice, the cadence, the trembling breath behind the words. Eshan? He removed the mask. Her brother. Now a man twisted by loss, betrayal, and years of underground manipulation. They made me forget you, Arya, he whispered. But pain brought it back. I remembered when I saw your face on the news, chasing the very deaths I left for you to find. She took a step forward, tears streaming. I didn't forget you. They erased you. We were kids, helpless. But it's not too late. Too late? His eyes burned. You still don't get it. You are the final trigger. He pulled out a device, a small detonator. Screens around them showed live feeds from multiple parks, schools, and shelters. Each death led you here. Now I finish the cycle. Rayan raised his weapon. Step back or I drop you right now. Eshan smirked. Go ahead, pull the trigger. Either way, one of us dies. But the truth dies with me if you do. Arya, shaking, stepped between them. There's another way. We expose them. The doctors, the program. We tell the world what they did to us. Eshan hesitated, hand trembling over the detonator. Then, an alarm blared. Footsteps. The rest of the CID team had arrived. Snipers locked onto Eshan. Don't shoot! Arya screamed. Please! But Eshan looked at her one last time. You broke your promise, Arya. Now I'll keep mine. He pressed the detonator. But instead of an explosion, a projection lit the sky outside the graveyard. Files, videos, names, experiments all leaked. A final message. Project Sev. Shut down. All secrets revealed. Eshan fell to the ground, smiling. Now they'll know what they did to us. Arya rushed to his side. He was alive, but barely. 3 a.m. Martinville's abandoned tunnel system. The cold, damp air inside the tunnel felt like it was seeping into Arya's bones. The shadows cast by the flickering flashlight on the walls seemed to take on a life of their own. The silence was almost deafening, broken only by the soft echo of their footsteps. Rayan walked ahead, his breath shallow, eyes scanning every corner. Behind them, Eshan, still alive, though weak, was being supported by 2 CID agents. Arya stayed close, eyes darting back and forth as she processed the enormity of the information that had just been revealed. Rayan, I thought it was over, but there's something about all this. It doesn't add up. The leaks, the files, the disappearances. Why would they do all of this just to expose themselves? She murmured, struggling to keep her voice steady. Rayan turned back to her, his face grim. Because, Arya, sometimes the greatest weapon is the truth. The world will see it, and they'll have no choice but to react. But someone doesn't want us to get to the truth. We've been followed. Arya's heart skipped a beat. Who? She whispered. I'm not sure yet, Rayan replied, voice barely above a whisper, but I can feel it. They reached the end of the tunnel. A thick steel door stood before them, embedded deep into the mountain's heart. There were no locks, just a strange, ancient-looking symbol engraved on the door. Arya stepped forward and placed her hand on the cold surface. Her mind flashed back to the moment she and Eshan were separated, when they were children, when everything changed. The symbol, it was the same one from the underground lab. It couldn't be a coincidence. This is it, the final place, the heart of the experiments, Arya said, her voice trembling with realization. Eshan, now standing behind her, stepped forward. He seemed different, more composed. Don't open it, Arya, he warned. If you open that door, it's not just the truth you'll uncover. You'll uncover a second layer of this hell. What do you mean? Arya asked, her mind racing. Eshan's eyes narrowed. You think the truth is what they showed us? What they allowed us to see? You think the Project SEV files were all of it? He laughed bitterly. No, Arya. There was another project. The one no one was meant to find. The real weapon. Arya's heart pounded in her chest as she turned to face him. What weapon? She demanded. But Eshan didn't answer. Instead, he turned his attention to the door. A keycard materialized from his coat pocket. This is where it began, and where it ends, he said, inserting the keycard. The door creaked open. A sharp, acrid stench wafted out, a mixture of chemicals, decay, and something worse. They stepped inside, and the room was revealed to them. An expansive, sterile facility with rows upon rows of bizarre containment pods. But it wasn't the pods that caught Arya's attention. It was the children. Pale, silent, their eyes empty. What is this? Arya whispered. This is the final trial. These children, Eshan said, voice grim, were never meant to be saved. They were meant to become the next stage, the next generation of the project. Biological weapons. Suddenly the lights flickered, and the floor beneath them rumbled. An alarm blared. They're waking up, Arya breathed, the horror of it dawning on her. Eshan stepped back, a wicked smile curling at his lips. You've already sealed your fate, Arya, he said, his voice cold. You wanted the truth? You'll get it, but it will cost you everything. Before Arya could react, the walls around them seemed to shift. The pods began to hiss, and within seconds, the children inside the pods began to move, their eyes glowing bright red. What is this? Arya screamed, backing away, but there was no escape. Eshan raised his hand. The next phase of Project SEV, Phase 2, has begun. And you, Arya, will be the one who carries it forward. Arya stared at the eerie, lifeless faces of the children. There was no going back now. No, I won't be part of this. I'll end this right now, Arya shouted, pulling a small device from her pocket. A tracker that could shut down the entire facility. Eshan's smirk faded into a look of pure rage. You think you can shut it down? These children were designed for this. They will take over, and when they do, you won't just lose everything, you'll lose yourself. Arya's hand trembled as she stared at the device. It was her last hope. But it would come at a price. What's the price? She asked, glancing at Rayan. He looked at her, shaking his head. There's always a price, Arya. Without warning, she slammed her finger down on the button, The lights flickered and then the alarm stopped. Silence. "It's done," Arya whispered, her heart sinking. The children's eyes closed. But then, the last pod, the one in the farthest corner, began to crack open. A figure stepped out, cloaked in shadows. His voice was a low, distorted whisper. "You think this is over?" The city of Martinville lay silent, but the stillness was broken by an unsettling storm in the hearts of its residents. The news had been broadcasting on loop. Third child found dead. Strangulation by snake. Mysterious coat on tongue. Everyone in town had heard about the bizarre discovery in the old graveyard. Inspector Arya Malik stood before the mass grave, the air thick with tension. She squinted through the fog and flashing police lights, trying to piece together the nightmare they were unraveling. It was more than just a gruesome string of murders. This was calculated, a carefully laid out puzzle. But now, standing in the graveyard, Arya felt that chilling realization creeping over her. The puzzle was about to reveal its final, deadly pieces. The forensic team had worked around the clock to examine the body of the young child. Their findings had shocked even the most seasoned experts. A 6-year-old boy, his face pale and lifeless, his body coiled as if it had been frozen in the last moments of his struggle, strangled by a snake. But the strangest part was yet to come. On his tongue, written in the tiniest and most precise script, was a coded message. A string of numbers and letters like an encryption waiting to be cracked. The code, it seemed, was the key. But to what? As Arya gazed at the crime scene, a sense of dread began to consume her. The feeling of being watched. The feeling that this case wasn't just a series of killings. It was something far darker. Her team had been working tirelessly on deciphering the code. After hours of back and forth with the most advanced cyber experts, they managed to unlock its meaning. The cryptic numbers were coordinates that led them to the outskirts of the city. A desolate, abandoned building. It was a place no one would willingly enter. "Are you sure about this?" her partner, Inspector Saira Ali, asked nervously. Her voice trembled as she looked at the screen. Where the coordinates blinked ominously, Arya took a deep breath. "We have no choice. If we don't go now, there might be more victims." The team geared up. This was the end game. They had no idea what they were about to walk into, but they had to face it, even if it meant stepping into the heart of darkness. The old warehouse stood like a decaying monument of terror. Its rusted doors groaned as they opened, and the foul stench of neglect filled the air. The team entered cautiously, their flashlights slicing through the pitch-black interior. Arya's heart hammered in her chest. They had all been led here, but the feeling of dread had grown tenfold. Was this truly the end, or was this just the beginning? Then they saw it. The room was lined with old machinery, and in the center, illuminated by a single, flickering light bulb, lay a large metallic box. It was strange, out of place in the decaying environment. The team approached it cautiously. "Open it," Arya ordered, her voice steady, though her mind raced with questions. Saira hesitated, but Arya's command was firm. As the box opened with an eerie creak, the officers gasped. Inside was not just any technology. It was a series of high-tech, bioengineered devices, each one a miniature, state-of-the-art machine designed to control living beings. "We were right," Arya murmured, her voice barely audible. The snake strangulation, the children, the dogs. It was all part of a twisted experiment. But now, Arya understood fully. This was never about creating new technology. It was about control, manipulation, and destruction. Suddenly the lights flickered again. The room felt colder. The shadows seemed to stretch and crawl across the walls. Arya's gut twisted. This was not just a lab. This was a breeding ground for something monstrous. Out of the corner of her eye, Arya caught a glimpse of movement. A figure, hidden in the shadows, observing them. She froze. She knew that figure. The face was familiar, but twisted, warped by something far darker than she could have imagined. "Who's there?" Arya demanded, her voice trembling. The figure stepped forward, and Arya's blood ran cold. It was Dr. Vikram, the same scientist who had disappeared years ago after the Project Zero scandal. He was supposed to be dead. "You..." Arya gasped. "But how..." "Did you really think I was gone?" Dr. Vikram's voice was low, cold, and calculating. "I created this. You think the deaths of those children and animals were just accidents? They were experiments. And now, It's time for the final phase. Suddenly, there was a loud bang. The door slammed shut. The room plunged into complete darkness. "Get out of here!" Syra shouted. "It's a trap!" But it was too late. Arya felt herself being pulled back by an invisible force, as if something was controlling her. Her vision blurred. She couldn't breathe. And then, there was silence. A hollow silence. Hours later, Arya awoke, her head throbbing, her body aching. The familiar faces of her team were gone. The room was empty, except for the strange, lifeless devices around her. And then, in the far corner, she saw it, a new machine, much larger than the others. It was connected to a child's body, hooked up to wires and tubes, just like the others. But there was something deeply unsettling about this particular child. His eyes were wide open, staring at nothing, yet there was something unnatural about them. Suddenly, everything clicked. The experiment wasn't over. The endgame wasn't just about control. It was about creating an army. A new generation of soulless, emotionless children and animals, mind-controlled to do whatever their creators willed. But Arya was done. She wasn't going to let this madness continue. With one final surge of strength, she broke free from the machine's grip. Her heart pounded as she rushed to the control panel, her fingers moving frantically to disable it. She had to end this once and for all. As the machine powered down, the silence returned. The city was saved. But at what cost? When the investigation was over, the news channels were flooded with updates. The strange disappearances, the deaths of innocent children and animals, the experiments, everything was exposed. Dr. Vikram was arrested, his network of conspirators dismantled. But Arya knew one thing for sure. The real cost wasn't in the lives lost. It was in the scars left behind. The unspoken trauma that would haunt the city forever. The scars that could never truly heal. As Arya looked at the empty, quiet streets of Martinville, she realized that the silence wasn't just the absence of noise. It was the echo of all the screams that had gone unheard, and those screams would haunt her forever. The end.